Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, reaching for your phone, and realizing every single politician, judge, police officer, and federal worker has simply vanished. The state is gone. Your first instinct might be that you are finally completely free. No taxes, no speed limits, no laws. No one looking over your shoulder. But true freedom looks very different than you think. And the very first thing that would happen wouldn't be a movie-style apocalypse with burning cars and leather jackets. It would be something far stranger, and honestly, much more terrifying. It would be absolute silence. If you enjoy learning how your mind, body, and world really works, subscribe now. Because this channel breaks down complex things in simple ways. And the reality of a world without rules is the most complex psychological experiment we could ever run. We have been conditioned to believe that without government, humanity instantly descends into chaos. But human nature holds a deeply hidden secret. It is not the violence that gets you first. It is the sudden, crushing weight of complete responsibility. When most of us hear the word government, we picture arguing politicians in suits, endless mind-numbing bureaucracy, or the painful sting of an income tax bracket. We think of it as a heavy, suffocating blanket thrown over society. But that is a massive misconception. Government is not a blanket lay. It is the invisible scaffolding holding up your entire perception of reality. It is the only reason you trust a green piece of paper in your wallet to buy food. It is the reason you confidently drink clear water from a metal tap in your kitchen without fearing for your life. It is the reason you can close your eyes at night without that invisible scaffolding. It is not the laws that disappear first. It is trust. The immediate consequence of a vanished state is the evaporation of certainty. And without certainty, the human brain begins to systematically panic. Let us look at the first 24 hours. The sun rises on a completely stateless world. You turn on the news, but the national channels are broadcasting dead air. The regulatory agencies that manage the complex grid of electricity and water are suddenly empty. Automated systems keep the lights on for now. You go to the grocery store to stock up on essentials, and this is where the very first crack in reality appears. The modern world operates on something called just-in-time delivery. Supermarkets do not have massive, overflowing warehouses in the back. They have exactly enough food for about 3 days. When the long-haul truck drivers realize there is no highway patrol to protect them, no guarantee their logistics company still exists, and absolutely no Federal Reserve backing the currency they are being paid in, they stop driving. Within a single day, the beautiful illusion of infinite abundance shatters completely. A fascinating historical parallel is the New York City blackout of 1977. When the power failed, plunging the entire city into darkness. The perceived absence of authority led to widespread looting and fires within hours. But that was a localized event with an expected end. People knew the lights would eventually come back on. In our stateless scenario, there is no dawn coming. But here is where it gets interesting. By day 3, you are not just out of milk and bread, you are out of money. Not physically. Your digital bank account still shows a comforting string of numbers on a glowing screen. But what does that number actually mean? Modern money is just a collective hallucination. It has value solely because a centralized authority promises it has value and demands taxes be paid in it. Without a government to enforce debts, regulate banks, and back the currency with violence, money reverts to just being paper and digital code. Suddenly, you cannot buy your neighbor's backup generator with $1,000. You have to trade them something they actually need to survive. Antibiotics, clean water, security, fuel. We would instantly revert to a desperate barter economy. And this is where most people get it wrong. Pop culture assumes we would instantly turn into lone wolves, wandering the wasteland and fighting everyone we see. But humans are not solitary predators. We are ultra-social primates. Isolation is a death sentence. But that is only half the story. Just as the physical infrastructure of the world begins to fracture, something much deeper and darker shifts inside your own mind. The sudden vacuum of power creates a terrifying realization that you have never had to face before. You are entirely responsible for your own survival. If someone knocks heavily on your door at 2 in the morning, there is no 3-digit number to dial for help. The police do not exist. The fire department is a memory. The psychological weight of infinite, unrelenting responsibility is crushing. And this brings us to a critical, dangerous turning point. The real danger of a world without government is not the absence of power. It is the frantic, violent race to replace it. Power absolutely hates a vacuum, and in the absence of a state, someone will always step up to claim authority. To understand exactly why this happens, we have to look deep into the psychology of human hierarchy. Our brains are biologically hardwired for structure and rank. We evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in small, tightly knit tribes of about 150 people. This cognitive limit is known in sociology and evolutionary psychology as Dunbar's number. It is the absolute maximum number of people with whom you can maintain a stable, meaningful social relationship. When the massive, faceless central government collapses, our brains immediately try to return to this factory setting. We do not become isolated, roaming individuals. We become fiercely tribal. You would immediately band together with your neighbors, your extended family, or your local community out of pure necessity. The human brain is like a compass that always points toward order. When the magnetic north of a federal government disappears, the compass spins wildly for a terrifying moment before locking on to a new, local source of gravity. You would see spontaneous order emerge almost immediately. Neighborhoods would barricade their streets with cars. Local militias would form overnight to protect fresh water sources. This spontaneous order sounds somewhat peaceful, but it is deeply dangerous. Why? Because trust no longer scales. Right now, you can confidently get on a commercial airplane sitting right next to a complete stranger, flown by a pilot you have never met, trusting ground crews and air traffic controllers you will never see. You do this effortlessly because an overarching authority guarantees strict safety standards and punishes bad actors. Without that authority, your circle of trust shrinks violently. It shrinks to the exact boundaries of your physical neighborhood. Anyone outside that boundary is no longer a fellow citizen. They become a potential, lethal threat. Psychologically, this triggers an endless state of hypervigilance. Your nervous system would be constantly flooded with cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, endlessly scanning the horizon for danger. Over time, this chronic, unyielding stress literally shrinks the hippocampus, the vital part of your brain responsible for memory and emotion regulation. A society living in constant fear rapidly loses its capacity for empathy. Empathy requires a fundamental feeling of physical safety. When safety vanishes, empathy is a luxury your brain can no longer afford to maintain. The physical and social consequences of this psychological shift are absolutely staggering. Without massive government oversight, the fragile, invisible systems keeping billions of modern humans alive would collapse like dominoes. Think about basic sanitation. The invisible army of unseen workers managing vast sewage treatment plants, complex water filtration networks, and daily garbage collection would dissolve as they rush home to protect their own families. Within mere weeks, preventable waterborne diseases like cholera and dysentery, which have been basically eradicated in the developed world for a century, would return with a devastating vengeance. Hospitals, quickly running out of fuel for emergency generators and exhausting their supplies of critical medications, would cease to be places of healing. They would become desperate places of triage, ultimately governed by whoever holds the most weapons. The modern concept of human rights would evaporate into thin air overnight. A right only exists in reality if someone has the power and willingness to enforce it. Without a state, your rights are exactly equal to your physical ability to defend them against someone else. The vulnerable, the elderly, the sick, and those relying on complex global medical supply chains like daily insulin would be the first tragic casualties of this brutal new world. Eventually, these isolated, fearful, hypervigilant tribes would begin to collide with one another. History shows us exactly how this dynamic plays out every single time. One neighborhood secures a clean, flowing water source, but they lack arable land for food. Another group has violently seized a massive grocery distribution center, but they are running completely out of ammunition and medical supplies. Desperate trade would begin, but so would ruthless war. From this chaos, warlords would inevitably emerge. These would be charismatic, ruthless leaders who offer terrified people safety and food in exchange for absolute, unquestioning obedience. People willingly, eagerly surrender their freedom when they are terrified for their children's lives. This is a fundamental, inescapable law of human psychology. We will almost always choose a brutal tyrant who guarantees we will not be murdered in our sleep over the chaotic, bloody freedom of absolute anarchy. Within just a few generations, these warlord territories would solidify their geographic borders. The warlords would start demanding a portion of your crops or labor in exchange for their protection. They would create strict rules of conduct. They would build infrastructure to move their soldiers. They would invent a new currency to control the local economy. And suddenly, you realize exactly what just happened. You have reinvented the state. You have built a brand new government. It might be much crueler, it might be vastly less efficient, and it might not care about your rights, but it is exactly the same structural mechanism, which leaves us with a profound, unsettling realization. Government is not something artificial imposed upon humanity from the outside by a group of elites. It is a biological, evolutionary inevitability. It is the natural secretion of human beings living together in large numbers. We are a brilliant species that simply cannot survive without intense cooperation, but we are also a deeply flawed species that cannot cooperate without strictly enforced rules. So, if you ever look at the frustrating, messy, overwhelmingly bureaucratic machine of modern society and wish it would all just burn down, remember this unspoken truth. We did not build governments because we are highly civilized and peaceful. We built them because we know exactly what we are capable of without them. And the only thing more terrifying than the heavy rules we live under is the monsters we become when those rules disappear.